More disturbing details are starting to emerge in the tragic death of 25-year-old Shanquella Robinson, and all evidence points to this being a planned.
For them to do what they did, ma'am, it just seemed like it was a plot, because they couldn't have did that over here, ma'am. They couldn't have did that over here, you know, where her friends, all her friends are. You know, it wouldn't have went down like that, ma'am. They don't realize, you know, what they done done, ma'am. They just robbed, they just put a hole in my heart, man. That was my only child. I'm just heartbroken, man.
Meanwhile, Shanquella's family has slammed the FBI for the way they're handling this case, and they're worried the authorities are not doing enough to catch the perpetrators. Thankfully, fans on social media are being very loud about getting justice for Shanquella, and even Shanquella's mom said if it wasn't for Black Twitter, her daughter's case would have gone cold. So what really happened to Shanquella Robinson? And what is this new evidence that suggests this was all premeditated? This case is extremely disturbing on so many levels because it's been over a month since this young woman died in Mexico, with footage of the vicious attack going viral. But despite false claims on the internet, no arrests have been made to this day. However, thanks to Black social media voices, Shanquella Robinson's story is getting a lot of press coverage at the moment, and pressure is being placed on officials in both Mexico and the US to answer questions about how Shanquella lost her life. But before we go into the details of this tragedy, let's talk about Shanquella's life and all of her accomplishments.
They have informed you in terms of their role in this case.
Well, they're not telling a lot. They don't want anything to get out. You know, they just keeping everything confidential.
Shanquella Robinson was an entrepreneur, hairstylist, and social media personality born in 1997 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Shanquella ran several successful businesses, including a women's boutique and children's hair braiding business in her hometown of Charlotte. Shanquella also had a strong social media presence and worked as a model doing photo shoots at famous destinations in Miami, Los Angeles, Jamaica, and other places. And the reason why Shanquella's death is getting this much attention is in large part because of Black Twitter. Fans are putting pressure on the authorities to catch the perpetrators, and they're saying they won't let Shanquella become another hashtag. So what happened to Shanquella, and why haven't the police arrested anyone yet? On October 29, 2022, Shanquella was found dead at a resort in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, where she arrived the day before with 6 acquaintances. At around 2:13 p.m. on October 29, a doctor from the American Medical Center arrived at the Cabo resort after someone called to report that a resident at the resort was feeling unwell. Around the same time, Shanquella's mother, Salamandra, who was in North Carolina, received a phone call from one of Shanquella's travel companions, telling her that her daughter was sick and that a doctor was on the way to check on her.
Well, I received a call on Saturday saying that my daughter was sick and that she had alcohol poison. But her doctor had never arrived, so I don't know where they had got the alcohol poison from. So at that time, they said a doctor was on the way to examine her. And she wasn't responding, as they told me. Say she was resting a little bit, but she wasn't all the way responding as normal.
According to the police report, the doctor arrived within an hour, and she discovered, quote, a female in stable condition but dehydrated, disoriented, verbally unresponsive, unable to communicate, and appearing to be intoxicated. The doctor tried to administer an IV drip. However, Shanquella's condition suddenly worsened, and she suffered a seizure at around 4:13 p.m. A few minutes later, an ambulance was called as Shanquella started having trouble breathing and her pulse dropped. The paramedics who arrived at the scene tried to resuscitate Shanquella, administering 14 rounds of CPR. Sadly, they were unable to restore her vital signs, and at 5:57 p.m., Shanquella Robinson passed away. However, this is where we get to the suspicious part of this whole story. See, the details of Shanquella's death that we just mentioned are all written in the initial report from Cabo Police. But the first huge red flag is that, according to this report, Shanquella's acquaintances told the doctor that Shanquella had drank a lot of alcohol, and when the doctor told them it was best for Shanquella to be admitted to the hospital, they insisted she is treated in the apartment room. But here's an even more disturbing detail. The Cabo Police report states that the doctor, who arrived an hour after being requested, discovered Shanquella alive. However, the autopsy report later issued found that Shanquella suffered injuries to her spine and neck, and that she died within 15 minutes of being injured. On top of all that, the Charlotte Observer has since discovered other suspicious details about the police report and the death certificate. For example, in the box for information about whether the death was accidental or violent, the former form simply said yes. Also, the police report doesn't mention a cause of death and only says the reason 911 was called was due to a deceased person cardiopulmonary arrest. Neither the police report nor the death certificate mentions Shanquella being drunk or having alcohol poisoning. So as you can see, almost nothing about this story adds up. And if it wasn't for the pressure on the authorities from social media, we probably would have never found out how Shanquella lost her life. And what's also extremely disturbing is that Shanquella's family said her injuries were consistent with the video footage from an Instagram Live that surfaced shortly after Shanquella passed away. The video shows someone beating a woman in a hotel room, and the family has recognized the woman being attacked as Shanquella. The video was reportedly filmed by Shanquella's so-called friend of 5 years. What's also chilling is that no one who filmed the video bothered to stop the other person, and the man filming for Instagram Live just said, "At least fight back," like he was trying to make it more entertaining for his video. The attacker can also be heard telling Shanquella to get up and fight, while Shanquella is seen sitting motionless on the floor after receiving numerous blows to her neck and head. But that's not all, and there's another horrifying detail that points to Shanquella's death being planned. Another video clip recently resurfaced on social media, showing Shanquella's alleged male best friend filming Shanquella while she was asleep in a hammock and saying, "First day, buddy." To think that Shanquella died just 24 hours after this video was posted definitely sets all kinds of alarms off, and people on social media are saying it's clear as day that Shanquella was set up by her so-called friends. Speaking of social media, it was mainly thanks to Black Twitter that this tragic story is making headlines, and Shanquella's mom, Salamandra, recently told NBC News that if it wasn't for the people on the internet, the authorities would have let the case go cold. Meanwhile, Shanquella's father, Bernard, spoke to TMZ and confirmed the family believes Shanquella's death was a setup and that Shanquella was most likely attacked while sleeping.
It was they attacked her, ma'am. It wasn't no physical. They attacked her, ma'am. I mean, it seemed like from my daughter was asleep, ma'am. You know, for all of them to be in that room, and then you know they come in there like I don't know, she woke up or whatever. The way it seemed like they attacked her, ma'am, and she naked, ma'am. You know, for a father to see that video, ma'am, because my daughter's not a fighter, ma'am. She's not a fighter, not at all.
Bernard broke down while talking about losing his only child and said the people who did this to his daughter should be charged and serve time in Mexico, where the crime was committed.
You know, I can't even be a granddaddy. Can't even walk down the aisle, ma'am. Can't even hear a voice. Can't even say daddy. Mom, you know, can't even say daddy. Can't even hear say grandma. You know, y'all just don't know. Y'all just don't know what this has done to me. Just don't know, ma'am. You just don't know. Just don't know. Just don't know.
According to ABC News, the FBI in Charlotte has now opened an investigation with Mexican authorities. However, Shanquella's parents have criticized the FBI for the lack of progress. Shanquella's mom recently shared a photo of her and Shanquella on Instagram and wrote in the caption, "Enough is not being done by the FBI to put the individuals who attacked Shanquella behind bars. I'm just trying to wait for somebody to be arrested. The FBI is not telling anything as of right now." She also said that Shanquella's attackers looked her right in the face and told her there was no fight that happened in Cabo, Mexico. "I believe they are on the run," Shanquella's mom added. And in another Instagram post, Salamandra revealed more details about Shanquella's so-called friends and said she's convinced they plan to take her daughter's life in Mexico. "I believe this was all planned," Salamandra wrote. "The people Shanquella went on a trip with have all been friends for over 10 years. Authorities have not informed me of any information due to the Shanquella case, but I was told the FBI is questioning everyone from the Cabo 6. After Shanquella's mom criticized the FBI, Newsweek contacted the U.S. State Department to try and get some updates on the investigation. However, their spokesperson simply said that the Department of State has no higher priority than the safety and security of U.S. citizens overseas, and that it is closely monitoring local authorities' investigation. In the meantime, local authorities in Cabo, Mexico reported that an extradition and arrest warrant have been issued. However, the U.S. State Department said they don't comment comment on matters of extradition. Charlotte Observer also reported that it's not clear how the U.S. authorities will proceed because, according to the Department of Justice, the extradition process is typically a very long one, if granted. Apparently, the U.S. officials have to decide whether the arrest warrant issued by Mexican authorities has merit and whether to extradite a U.S. citizen for a crime committed against another U.S. citizen in a foreign country. And even if the U.S. decides to issue an arrest warrant, the defendant can still fight extradition and ask to be tried in the U.S. Thankfully, people on social media are refusing to let this case fall through the crack, and they're saying we need to keep making noise about this tragedy until Shanquella's family gets justice. One Twitter user said, "The second we stop talking about things, they get swept under the rug. Let's keep talking about Shanquella every day. We must never give up." But how do you feel about the way the authorities are handling this case? Do you think this was a setup, and do you think the perpetrator should be extradited to Mexico? Leave your comments down below, and we'll see you in our next video.